It's important to pay close attention to your loved ones, because behind their habits, moods, or behavior, there may be hidden experiences or problems that we are unaware of. In today's world, threats can lurk in the most unexpected places, so it's crucial to be cautious and be able to recognize potential risks not only for ourselves but also for those around us. Care and attentiveness towards loved ones can protect against dangers and strengthen relationships. Mikey, that's what Mikaela Costanza was usually called. She was born on May 3, 1994, in the small town of Elko, Nevada, USA. Mikey grew up with her parents, Celia and Theodore Costanza, in the quiet town of West Wendover, located on the border of two states, Nevada and Utah. Micaela's childhood years passed carefree and happily. Relatives and friends of the family remember Mikey as a cheerful and energetic child. When Mikey grew up and started attending high school, she quickly stood out from other students. Micaela not only demonstrated brilliant academic results but also enjoyed incredible popularity among her peers. Everyone at school knew Mikey, and she had a huge number of friends. In addition to studying, the girl was passionate about sports. She played on the school basketball team and was involved in track and field. Moreover, Micaela held the position of editor of the school newspaper and seemed to be constantly busy with some matters. Mikey always found something to keep herself occupied, whether for her own development or for the needs of the school. People close to the girl note that Micaela had a wonderful relationship with her family and was very attached to her loved ones. Mikey's parents said that their daughter was always extremely responsible and never caused them any problems. The Costanza family surrounded Micaela with love and care. They insisted on driving the girl to school and picking her up from there, even when she was already in high school. The parents wanted to make sure that their daughter would safely get to school and return home. Some people considered such guardianship somewhat excessive, because the family home was only 500 meters away from the school where Mikey studied. But the Costanza family was not at all worried about other people's gossip. For them, the Mikey's safety was above everything else. March 3, 2011 was supposed to be just like any other ordinary day. Micaela was supposed to return from school, and her sister Christina planned to pick her up. Christina was already married and lived separately from her parents. Usually, it was she who picked up Micaela from school, took her home, and then returned to her own place, where she lived with her husband. But that day, Christina was not in town. She had gone to Las Vegas with her husband. Micaela's parents were at work and could not come to pick up their daughter, so there was no one else to meet her. But they were not too worried because the house was not far from the school and the town of West Wendover was quiet and peaceful. However, as we already know, even in the most peaceful places, terrible crimes sometimes occur. Immediately after classes, Micaela left the school. She was supposed to call her mother, who was at work, as soon as she got home. That day, Celia was working at a casino and was waiting for a call from her daughter. Time passed, but Micaela still hadn't called. Worried, Celia tried to call her daughter on her mobile phone, but all her calls remained unanswered. The woman felt uneasy. Usually, Micaela always called her mother as soon as she got home to let her know that she was okay. And every time her mother called her, the girl answered. Celia understood that something was wrong. Then she contacted Christina, Micaela's sister, and asked if she had spoken to the girl. Christina replied that she hadn't. At the same time, she tried to reassure her mother, suggesting that Micaela had probably stayed late at extracurricular training. Or maybe she just got caught up in talking with friends and didn't notice how time flew by. Christina also tried to call her sister, but to no avail. Hours passed, and the weather was getting colder and colder. Celia knew that her daughter had not taken a coat with her to school. And she was even more worried because wherever Micaela was, she was probably cold. Due to her concern, the woman asked to leave work early. Celia hoped that Micaela was already at home and would explain to her what had happened. But when she arrived home, Team Mikey's mother realized that her daughter had not returned yet. Only DJ and another of Micaela's sisters were in the house. Celia asked them if they had communicated with Micaela. But, like her mother and other sisters, they too had not heard anything from the girl. Celia and Micaela's sisters repeatedly tried to contact her. DJ even left several messages, saying that if it was some kind of joke, it wasn't funny at all. Not receiving a response from Mikey, The family decided to contact all her classmates, but no one knew anything. After that, the family realized that the situation was really serious, so they called the police. Law enforcement officers immediately began the search. It didn't take long for the news of Micaela's disappearance to spread through the tiny town of West Wendover, which had a population of just over 4,000 people. About 80 people, including family acquaintances and strangers who just wanted to help, joined the search. Micaela's boyfriend, Javier, was called in to give testimony. He informed the police that he also knew nothing and that the last time he saw Micaela, she was acting as usual. The search for Mikey yielded no results. Then the police decided to take a different approach. They checked Micaela's phone call records and analyzed the last calls she made. Among these calls was a phone number that appeared several times. The number belonged to Cody Payton. Cody was one of Micaela's best friends, and they had known each other since childhood. Cody was 18 years old, played football, and was in the same graduating class at the same school as Micaela. The young man lived with his family in the same neighborhood as the Costanza family. It was in this area that Cody and Mikey met and became friends. The young man was engaged to a girl named Tony Fratto, who also attended their high school. They met at the educational institution and began dating in 2009. Sadly, Cody was so in love that he even adopted the Mormon faith and moved in with Tony's parents, just to please her. Before meeting his girlfriend, the young man had no particular ambitions. He just wanted to finish school and then get some quiet job in Elko. But after meeting Tony, Cody changed. Tony began to encourage him to study, insisted that he graduate from school with good grades, and then go to serve in the Navy and continue his career. Tony had been diligent since early childhood. Her parents were extremely religious, so she had to attend church every Sunday, like every believer. According to those close to her, Tony was always very shy and quiet, and her best friends were only her parents and her boyfriend. On March 4th, the day after Micaela's disappearance, Cody was called in to give testimony. The young man was exhausted as he had not slept all night, helping in the search for Mikey. He told the police that he had seen Mikey leaving the school with a young man whom he mistook for her boyfriend Javier. The search continued, but there was no sign of Micaela. The city of West Wendover is located in the middle of the Nevada desert. Around the city lies more than 250,000 square kilometers of uninhabited area. This is a territory where it is very easy for anyone to get lost, disappear, or even hide a body. At that time, Micaela's family feared the worst. They assumed that Mikey had probably been kidnapped by someone who wanted to harm her. It was the only explanation. But who could want to harm Mikaela Costanza? Christina, Micaela's sister, returned with her husband from Las Vegas as soon as possible to help with the search. She told her mother that no matter what had happened to Mikey, she would bring her home. Christina walked most of the way. She was preparing for the worst, so she was looking for areas where the ground had been disturbed. But despite all her efforts, she failed. Celia wanted to join her daughter in the search, but the police asked her to stay at home in case Micaela returned. But unfortunately, Mikey never showed up. On March 6, 2011, 3 days after the disappearance, one of the volunteers who was helping with the search noticed something strange. In the middle of the desert, he saw tire tracks that looked fresh. Then he followed the trail left behind and found a spot on the ground that looked like blood. And in the same place, the soil was disturbed, as if someone had been buried there. The volunteer, without touching anything, immediately called the police. When law enforcement officers arrived, they began to dig up the ground at this spot. And indeed, there was a body. Forensic teams were called in, but they had to come from the city of Reno, which is more than 5 hours' drive from West Wendover. So the local police had to wait until the next day. Christina was also in the desert, still searching for her sister, when she saw an isolated area with several police officers around. She immediately realized that they had found something. Then she decided to go to her mother's house. And later, the two of them went to the police station in search of answers. The police told them that they had found a body in the desert. And although they were not sure if it was Micaela, there was a high probability that it was her, since Mikey was the only person reported missing. The two asked to see the body, but the police replied that they needed to wait for the arrival of the forensic team in order not to contaminate the crime scene. Christina resisted. She asked the police officer if they would leave her sister out in the cold for another night. The police officer replied that it was necessary for the investigation and asked Christina and her mother Celia to return home. Celia told them that their girl should not spend another night alone. The police officer assured them that they would spend the whole night there and that their girl would no longer be alone. And again, they asked the two to return home. In tears, they returned and did not sleep all night. With the arrival of the team, the body was completely dug up, and soon it was confirmed that it was indeed Mikaela Costanza. The autopsy showed that Mikey had been beaten, and there were numerous cuts on her body made with a knife. She also had several cuts on her face and neck. The detectives thought that this attack came from someone who knew Mikey, and probably had personal problems with her. Micaela's relatives were even more shocked after receiving confirmation that the body did indeed belong to Mikey. News of the crime quickly spread through the small town, creating an atmosphere of shock and fear. During the investigation, the police came across school surveillance cameras. They showed Micaela leaving at the usual time and in the company of a young man. Despite the fact that the images had poor clarity, the police were able to conclude that the young man who was with Mikey was not Javier, the girl's boyfriend. This young man turned out to be Cody Payton. The boy's biological father, Keith Payton, took him to the police station to give testimony. Cody denied his involvement in the crime. But during the interrogation, he asked to speak with his father in private. Their conversation was not recorded. However, through the door, the police heard the boy's father crying and saying that Cody had to be a man and tell the whole truth. When the officers returned to the room, Cody's father repeated the words that he had to tell the whole truth. Cody, having no other choice, decided to reveal to the police everything about the events that led to the death of Mikaela Costanza. He said that he met the girl on the way from school and offered to give her a ride home. But on the way, Mikey insisted that they go to the desert to discuss their relationship. Cody admitted that he was confused but complied with the girl's request. When they got out of the car, Micaela begged Cody to leave his fiancée and start dating her because she was very much in love with him. Payton said that he refused, and that's when Team Mikey became aggressive, started screaming and hitting him. To defend himself, he pushed Mikey, who fell and hit her head on the ground. She froze, and then began to shake and convulse. Cody tried to save her, but Mikey did not respond and lost consciousness. In despair, Cody began to think about what to do. That's when Micaela came to her senses and began to hit herself, losing control. Then Cody walked to the car, took a shovel and hit Mikey. She lost consciousness again. Coming closer, the young man realized that the girl was not breathing and decided to make cuts on her body to mask everything that had happened. Obviously, this story made no sense to the police, not to mention that the injuries sustained by the victim did not match Cody Payton's version. The officer tried to get more information, but Cody wouldn't stop crying and could barely speak. After that, they had to stop the interrogation, and Payton was arrested for the crime. Micaela's relatives, upon learning of Cody's involvement in the crime, were shocked. They had known the boy since childhood, as well as his entire family, and they could not understand why he had committed this crime. They hoped that someone had convinced Cody to do what he did, because he would never harm his childhood friend. Cody's lawyer, hired after his arrest, also shared this opinion. For him, Cody's personality did not match the brutality of the crime. Assuming it was true, why would the boy confess to something he didn't do? Cody's relatives were shocked to learn of his involvement in the crime. Christina and Celia loved the boy very much and treated him like a son. They even visited him in prison and asked why he had committed the crime. Cody simply replied that he didn't know. Cody's fiancée, Tony, was also interrogated by the police. She said that she was very shaken by everything that had happened and that she had no idea why her fiancé had committed the crime. At school, Tony became even more reserved, always walked with her head down, and hardly spoke to anyone. Other students felt sorry for her. Tony had virtually no friends, and her boyfriend, whom she loved so much, turned out to be a monster. On April 22, 2011, Tony Fratto and Keith Payton, Cody's father, went to meet with John Olson, the boy's defense attorney. Tony's parents were out of town, so they asked Keith to take her to the lawyer's office, because she needed to tell him something very important. When they arrived at the office, Tony sat right in front of the lawyer and agreed to have the conversation recorded. Tony said that she was at the crime scene with Cody when it all happened. The beginning of her version matched Cody's version, but according to her, after Micaela fell to the ground and lost consciousness, she and Cody attacked her and made cuts on her body, after which Cody dug a hole where he buried Mikey. Then the two of them left this place. It is unclear why Tony confessed to part of the crime, since she had never been considered a suspect. From the conversation that took place between her and the lawyer, it follows that she intended to remove some of the blame from Cody. The lawyer took the confession recording straight to the police. Tony Fratto, like Cody, was charged and arrested for the crime against Mikaela Costanza. After Tony's arrest, Tony's parents completely changed Cody's version. They continued to say that the boy was aggressive, domineering, and that their daughter had become a victim of his manipulation. They also said that they had advised their daughter to file a police report, but the girl replied that if she did, Cody would not be able to go to serve in the Navy. 2 months earlier, cameras at the school had recorded something that confirmed this version of the parents. The footage with Cody shows Tony cornered and pressed against the wall. The boy is nervous and excited. He argues with the girl and then pulls her by the arm. Left alone, the boy was incapable of causing harm to anyone, but his fiancée may have been extremely jealous, which eventually provoked the crime. Celia and Theodore believed that Tony was jealous and envied Micaela because of her friendship with Cody. In early 2012, the prosecution offered a plea deal to Cody. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and faced life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. However, in exchange for this, he would have to testify in court against his fiancée. This deal would have been beneficial for Cody because there was a possibility that he would face the death penalty if he went to trial. The boy agreed to the deal, but a few days later changed his mind and said that he wanted to take his chances in court, even if he could be sentenced to death. On January 19, 2012, it was Tony's turn. The prosecution also offered her a deal. It was not the same deal, but it was better. Tony had to plead guilty to second-degree murder and could petition for parole after serving 18 years of her sentence when she turned 36. She would also have to testify against Cody in court. Tony, without hesitation, agreed to the deal. At the end of January 2012, Tony was interrogated again, and this time she told a completely different story about the crime. She said that on the day of the crime, she was given a ride home together with Cody. And when she got into the car, she noticed that Micaela was sitting in the back seat and looked very frightened, while Cody was in the zone. As Cody was driving into the desert, he sent Tony a text message saying that they had to get rid of Micaela. In response, Tony sent a message asking why. Cody did not reply to Tony's message. Keeping silent and heading towards the desert, they communicated by text messages so that Micaela, who was in the back seat, could not hear their conversation. As soon as they arrived at the place chosen by Cody, he stopped the car, grabbed a shovel, and began digging a grave, simultaneously ordering Tony to watch over Mikey. When he was finishing, he ordered Tony to hit Micaela, but the girl walked away, stating that she did not want to participate in this. Then the young man did everything alone, and then ordered Tony to take the shovel and hit Mikey. Tony said that she was very afraid of becoming the next victim of her fiancé. She took the shovel and hit Micaela on the shoulder. After that, Cody put Mikey in the grave and finished it all off by making cuts on Mikey, as stated in the police report. The young man buried her, and then went with his fiancée to a McDonald's in the city. Later, Cody and Tony crossed the border into Utah, where they got rid of Micaela's clothes and belongings by burying them in a desert area. Although Tony told this new version with all the details, she could not explain to the police what made Cody take the life of Micaela, his childhood friend, with whom he had always had a good relationship. Tony only said that Cody had always hated Mikey and that even the victim's voice irritated him. This new version of the facts that Tony provided to the police took her out of the position of an accomplice and put her in the position of a victim. A poor, fragile, helpless girl who was forced to do something terrible by her problematic fiancé. But is that really the case? If so, why did the young woman visit her fiancé in prison so many times, given that after Cody's arrest, he no longer posed a threat to her? And what about her daily phone calls to the prison, where she told Cody that she loved him and missed him? Even her parents visited Cody in prison to give him at least some support, and then they said that he was a domineering and cruel boy. A few days before April 22, 2011, when Tony went to Cody's lawyer and told her first version of the facts, she delivered her things to her fiancé's apartment, and among these things was her diary. Cody's parents handed everything over to the police, hoping that this would somehow help their son, since the boy's chances of receiving the death penalty were high. In her diary, Tony wrote about her insecurity and concerns about her relationship with Cody. She was jealous and envious of Micaela and thought that her fiancé might leave her for his best friend. She even wrote that Cody and Mikey made a good couple, and that deep down she knew that her fiancé didn't really love her. Micaela's sisters and colleagues reported that Tony didn't like the girl at all. Her jealousy grew, even if there was no reason for it, and every time she saw Cody talking to Mikey, she threw a tantrum. Tony even wrote that she was so angry with her fiancé that she was thinking about taking her own life. Micaela's sisters and colleagues also reported that Cody had changed a lot after he started dating Tony. The boy began to make boring and senseless jokes of a cruel nature. Mikey greeted Cody whenever she saw him, but she stopped talking to him like she used to. Later, the police discovered that Cody had a secret relationship with another woman. In fact, the car in which he took Micaela to the crime scene belonged to this woman. Perhaps Tony knew about her fiancé's infidelity, but in her opinion, Cody's mistress was Micaela, not someone else, which in a sense, perhaps, helped provoke the series of events that led to the crime. A few weeks before the trial date, Cody, under the influence of his lawyer and family members, agreed to sign a plea deal. He pleaded guilty. Thus, he would not face trial. Cody Payton was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As for Tony Fratto, after accepting the deal, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after serving 18 years of her sentence. Currently, Cody is being held in the Ely State Maximum Security Prison in the city of Ely, Nevada. Tony is in prison in the city of Elko, also in the state of Nevada. On August 31, 2018, Cody got married in prison to a 26-year-old woman named Amanda Smith. It is unknown if they knew each other before the boy was arrested, but it seems that they started a correspondence relationship. In April 2021, Tony Fratto had her first parole hearing after serving almost 10 years of her sentence. Her request was denied, and she will be able to hold another hearing only in 2024. To this day, it is unknown what really happened on the day of the crime, since the versions provided by the two defendants in the case contradict each other. In the opinion of most people, Cody was manipulated by his former fiancée to commit the crime, but this is only a theory. What is really known is that the life of a cheerful and friendly young girl, who had her whole future ahead of her, was taken away in a terrible way. Mikaela Costanza's funeral was open to the public and more than 1,000 people attended. Family and friends talked about Mikey, remembering how happy and cheerful she was. This chilling story about the death of Mikaela Costanza can hardly be called fair, because the life of a young girl was cut short too early and under terrible circumstances. Both criminals, Cody Payton and Tony Fratto, are now serving their sentences in prison for their cruel actions, but this will not bring Mikey back to life. Nevertheless, this case demonstrates the importance of a thorough investigation of crimes and careful attention to details that can be key to uncovering the truth. It was only thanks to the persistent work of investigators and the use of all available evidence that Cody and Tony's involvement in Micaela's murder was established. If you like this story and want to learn more about the investigation of complex crimes, be sure to subscribe to the Detective Brooks channel. Here you will find many interesting and exciting stories about the work of investigators, profilers, and forensic experts who solve the most difficult cases. Support the channel with your subscription and share it with your friends if you think this information will be useful for them. The heartbreaking case of Mikaela Costanza's murder serves as a somber reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human heart, even in the most unsuspecting of places. The senseless taking of a young life, full of promise and potential, leaves an indelible scar on the fabric of a community and the hearts of those left behind. While the exact motivations and circumstances surrounding Micaela's death may never be fully known, this case underscores the critical importance of fostering healthy relationships, open communication, and a supportive network of family and friends. Jealousy, possessiveness, and unhealthy obsessions can twist even the closest of bonds, leading to unthinkable acts of violence and betrayal. As we reflect on the tragedy that befell Micaela and her loved ones, let us also consider how we might work to prevent such heartbreak in the future. Parents, educators, and community leaders must remain vigilant in teaching young people about the warning signs of toxic relationships, the importance of setting healthy boundaries, and the need to seek help when faced with troubling situations. Open, honest dialogue about mental health, emotional well-being, and the challenges of navigating interpersonal relationships can provide a crucial lifeline for those who may be struggling. Moreover, it is essential that we cultivate a society that values empathy, compassion, and the fundamental sanctity of human life. By treating one another with kindness, respect, and understanding, we can begin to chip away at the fear, anger, and isolation that too often give rise to acts of violence. In honoring Micaela's memory, let us recommit ourselves to building a world where every person feels valued, supported, and safe from harm. To protect ourselves and our loved ones from falling victim to such senseless acts of violence, consider the following guidelines. Foster open, honest communication with family and friends. Regularly check in with loved ones, especially if you notice changes in their behavior or demeanor. Be aware of the warning signs of toxic or abusive relationships, such as extreme jealousy, controlling behavior, or attempts to isolate a person from their support network. Trust your instincts. If a situation or person makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, don't hesitate to reach out for help or remove yourself from the situation. Develop a strong support system of trusted confidants, including family members, friends, teachers, or counselors. Know that you are never alone and that there are always people ready and willing to help. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, abusive relationships, or thoughts of self-harm, seek professional help immediately. Many resources, hotlines, and support services are available to provide guidance and assistance. Promote a culture of kindness, empathy, and respect in your community. Stand up against bullying, harassment, or discriminatory behavior, and work to create an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and supported. While we may never fully understand the depths of human cruelty or the machinations that lead to such tragic outcomes, we can honor Micaela's life by working to create a safer, more compassionate world for all. The road ahead may be long and arduous, but by standing together in solidarity, we can begin to heal the wounds of the past and build a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you for joining us on this journey as we explored the heartbreaking story of Mikaela Costanza. Your support and dedication to understanding the complexities of the human experience are truly appreciated. While this may be the end of this particular chapter, there are countless more stories waiting to be told, stories of hope, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit. I invite you to continue with us on this path of discovery as we work to shed light on the darkest corners of the human psyche and, in doing so, perhaps find our way to a more just and compassionate world. Until we meet again, dear viewers, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.